Hello, everybody. Welcome to your Friday lighting critique. So to kick things off, I mean, we obviously have our normal still images, but I wanted to kind of take a look at one of the projects. So we'll start with Bipul. So we've got, I like the warmth that you've got on the skin. So one of the things I wanted to take a look at was his eye. And this is, again, true for anybody who works with this Mr. Bean asset. I think it's a great asset. I think it plugs and plays really well into RenderMan, especially in Maya. But I think his eye, the default shaders on his eye can do some wacky things. And one of them is that it can just, like, can you guys see my screen in Nuke? Everyone see Nuke right now?
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't switch when I switch screens. Great. So basically, one of the things that ends up happening is, like I said, there's a little bit of, you can see more in this eye, just kind of like the contrast. It's like the center of it's a little bit brighter, then it gets kind of dirty around the edges. A little bit less in this side, but I kind of wanted to focus in on this one. So what I did was I took it from here, and I changed the color a little bit, and I added a little bit more of a, because I think we have the opportunity to have some shape in the eye ding just because we have these square windows. I just kind of made a little square eye ding in there too. It's a little goofy because it's layered over top of the circular one, but you get the idea. But basically what I did here, just because I didn't have mats, I just drew some super amazing roto shapes around things. These are pretty rough, but they're perfect. And basically what I wanted to do was, inside this node, what I did, I'll do these one at a time so you can see. The first thing that I usually like to do with any time that the eyes start to get too marbled like that is I always take the gamma and I start to just kind of pull that up a little bit. Because what that does is because what the gamma does is it keeps the highs and the lows and it just pulls up the mids. So those mids are where the kind of grayscale is. And so by like the gray values and kind of the splotchiness. So if you pull those up, they become lighter, more like the white stuff. And then it just kind of flattens it out overall, which isn't always great. But eye whites, I find that it can be really good, especially if you have the reflection separate, because then you can layer the reflection on top of that. It just kind of evens it a touch, and then you have total control over. Because one of the things that does too is you start to lose the color. So I can start to work the color back in a little bit. You can make it brighter or not. And then additionally, I went ahead and just kind of increase the pupil color, because I think on the key side we can push that just a touch more. That might be a little strong, but like kind of just a little bit more goose on that. And then anytime I'm working with eyes, I can, I usually like to create a little bit of a drop shadow, so there's like a little separation between the eyelid and the eyeball itself. And the way that I do that is you can either do an edge detect, but for this one I just took this original roto that I drew. I blurred it and then I kept it inside of itself. So that blurred element, what that does is it creates just like a little bit of darkness around the edge. And I pushed that a little bit more. I inverted it, and then I put it back inside of itself. And the reason why I did that was I wanted a white edge to it, because and I held it back inside itself again. But what I wanted was this white edge, so that I could then go in. Excuse me. Let me just delete that for now. Because then what you can do is you can take that white and black, and that allows you to create almost like an ambient occlusion shadow. And of course you can run ambient occlusion on it. That'll actually be better. But this is a way of doing that, just to get that kind of edge, like just that little bit of shadowing going on there. And one of the things I like to do there is, because that shadow is partial shadow, it's also partial reflection. So it would reflect some of the warmer values around the eye. So you kind of want to work some of those in there as well. So you can just see that like drops back into place a little bit. And that might be a little bit heavy, actually. So, you can either take that down or just control the mix of it. And then this is like personal preference. But like I said, I added a little bit of a kind of a square eye ding on top. I'll just go ahead and, this is going to be too bright, but just so you can kind of see. That's too bright. But like basically, you can kind of see like the window shape on there. Crazy about that. But this is then kind of like a before and after. It's not a huge difference, but it cleans it up a little bit and just makes it more kind of a unified look to it. So that's all I would do with that. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that?
Oh no, I understood.
Okay, cool. Great. Yeah, other than that though, let's take a look. I mean, I think his hair might be a little bit orange now. I think the skin looks good. I think the hair might have a little bit too much of that in there. I pull that back a little bit because his hair is more of like a jet black. Yeah, anybody else have any thoughts on this guy?
I was just.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Kelvin, your audio cut out there. Can you say that again?
Do you usually find more success using an fast? Is it still cutting out?
It's still cutting out a little
See
bit.
my thing flash.
Is it just me?
No, I can see my light.
Might just be my connection. That's weird. Somebody else say something.
I can see my light flashing. Is it cutting out still?
Oh no, there you go. That's better. That's much better.
Yeah, I was just curious if you usually use pass.
Damn it! It does that every time. I'm sorry, Kelvin. It cut out again.
That's so frustrating.
I know. It literally, that's so frustrating. Came through perfectly clear. That was perfect. Man.
I don't know. Maybe find some.
Let's see.
Oh well.
I'm sorry. Could you maybe type it in
Yeah.
Type me a message here. Yeah, here we go. Does anybody else have any thoughts? It's crazy. I can hear the typing. That's ridiculous. Yeah, no, I think this is good. All right, cool. Let's take a look here. Oh, Ruby got some stuff in. Hey. All right, cool. I'll take a look at this too. All right. Do you usually go for AO for adding eye passes, or do you just bring in the blurring technique for this quick example? If I have the opportunity, so if I'm the one doing the rendering, I always render an ambient occlusion for the eyes, or I just run ambient occlusion on the character as a whole and use a mask, a matte, like either crypto matte or a matte that I generate to isolate it to just the eye, and then I can control that. That blurring technique I've done in the past when I no longer when I'm just the compositor on something and somebody sends me files and they'll send me like a matte for the eye and I'm like, ooh, I wish we had some ambient occlusion there and it's not provided, then I will do, or if you don't have time to render and you have to finish something in the next hour, then I would do it that way, especially if it's like a long shot but the character's pretty static. The problem with that technique is if the character turns and you get the eye in profile, then you get you have to paint out or do something to get the ambient occlusion out from the outside edge of it. You know what I mean? Because usually it just detects the edge of the alpha. So if I can get ambient occlusion rendered out, that's the way I go with it.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool. All right, great. Okay, let's go through some of these others, and we will go through alphabetically today. So Abishek, let's see. Is this now composited out?
No, still not. I was thinking to do it this weekend.
Okay.
Didn't have got much time.
Okay, cool. So I love that we got the clouds in there. I think we want to make them so that they're the way that they're kind of sloped down right now from a composition standpoint. They kind of slope down and kind of create a focus right here, which that's not where we're going. We want to maybe try and shift them, if you can shift them over so all that stuff kind of dips around almost the house itself, so that it all kind of focuses us in on that.
Yeah, I think I can do it because this is the clouds are made by myself actually.
Great.
I use the 2 to 3 things and merge it.
Yeah, they're
So I
fun.
can do it.
They're fun. They're a little bit more stylized. If there's like a range of stylized to photorealistic, like the scene itself isn't photoreal, but the clouds are very stylized. So I would maybe take, and it's mostly just that kind of warp. I would just maybe take that down a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the clouds need to focus on going through the house side. That's
Yeah.
what you are saying, right?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
like these, they're not falling back into space. There's just less clouds here in the middle, but they kind of it kind of follows the same like U shape as everything else that really leads us. Because like all of this stuff kind of ramps up here, and then all this stuff ramps down there, and it leads us to focus in here in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. I like these sun hits in the foreground here.
And the warm tone is good.
Looking at that now.
I have increased the warm tone
Yeah.
and also added the light in the house.
Oh yeah, I like the light in the house. I would put I'll maybe put like a piece of geo, so it's almost like a table or something right there, just because it's like, just to make it feel like there's stuff inside the house. For the color itself, I feel like it might be a little bit too red, and I would shift it. Maybe have it be a little bit more on the yellow side, because and basically make it a little bit more orange and less red. Yeah, maybe something a little more like that. Ooh, that's not the one. All right. But I think that's coming in line pretty well. I'll open this up. What do you guys think? Yeah. I think this is coming together really well. Let's see. Let's just take one last reference first.
Just one question about the comp thing. What are the passes will I need for this? Actually, I was going to use the CryptoMat, but I haven't used actually. This was the first time.
Yeah, you should definitely use the crypto mats, because like that'll be really handy. Like I said, so the one thing you really want to take care of is that indirect light that's bouncing up underneath here.
Okay.
So for me, whenever I break something out, because let me start with this. The main answer I always give when people ask like what layers do you need, I always say like only break out what you want to control, because what ends up happening sometimes is people like just see that list of AOVs and just click all of them, and then they just end up with a mess or files that are too big and they can't save them. So for me, what I almost always end up controlling. I do direct and indirect passes, diffuse and specular, any sort of reflections I do separately, crypto mats 100% of the time, and that's pretty much it out of the gate. Like any sort, like the basic, diffuse, specular, subsurface, and if there's any sort of emission, I render that separately. Direct and indirect light, so I can have control over those. Crypto mats, I think that's pretty much it. Any sort of depth information too, like the depth, because that's how you'll get the aerial perspective to kind of come into play here. So you'll want some aerial perspective back there, and then you control that other stuff.
Okay. And what do you think about fog volume at the back of the house near the mountain?
Oh
Is
yeah,
it a good
definitely,
idea?
definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because it'll
Got
help create a sense of depth and sense of scale for the scene.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, let's hop into Austin's here real quick. So we've got the updates. Let's do this over the previous. Oh, that's all right. All right, the darkening really does help, I think. Yeah, I think that really, really helps kind of compose everything together. So my I think the color scheme is good. The way that those are coming together. My big note for this one is just those red lights in the back at the end. And the reason why there's a couple things about them. They're very saturated. They're like a pure red, and there's just kind of like a glow around them, like a blur around them without like a light source. So usually what I like to see in something like this, I'm zooming into this one. Oh, you kind of got it in there, but basically it would be kind of a stronger core because there's a light bulb in there or something, right? And so this actually almost becomes like a bright white. It's gonna be tough to blur it because it's kind of small, but that's fine. But basically, what ends up happening is there's just like a bright light source that's in there. And that creates more variation within that. And then because then it's like there's the bulb, there's the glow, and then the lights themselves become a little bit more directional in that because what I'm seeing right now is just like a kind of a perfect circle of blur around each one. And all of that being said, I don't necessarily think we even need the lights. So I would either push them a little bit more where they'd have a little bit more variation within them, but I would also just try without them because I think I'm convinced that there's a red light inside this room that's hitting this, giving this down here, and I'm totally fine. I would be convinced that the light in there and all the light bouncing around would actually contribute to that red on the pipes as well. And I think because I think the thing that's working out the best in terms of the framing element isn't actually the lights of themselves. It's like this little bit of red that's hitting the edge here. I think that's really cool. And I think that frames her subtly. In the other red lights, like this one's right by her head, and that's actually kind of working against us a little bit. So, my take on it, I would leave the contributions of the lights themselves and just be able to convince myself it's the light on the other side of that door, and then turn off the glowing orbs. Does anyone agree or disagree with that? Or I should say, or have additional opinions about the images that Austin submitted?
Mike, I think just to open the over the right side of the top, the light is looking not proper actually.
Oh, something's going on over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just like I think it looks like Austin. It looks like you probably rendered them at a different scale, or it's just some sort of reformatting issue. Unless I did that. Did I do that? No, I didn't do that.
Possibilities.
Yeah. So just keep your eye on that. All right, cool. Yeah. Anybody else got anything for Austin? All right, cool. All right, Kelvin. So I think this is. Hey, there, good audio. I like it. For now. Yeah. So I think overall, I think it's looking great. My one thing is that because the first shot is where we're introducing her, I think we might want to bounce a little bit more light onto her face because I think that her, like here it looks great. Even in here, she's getting some good, like bounce in there. But it's just like this
little like flare glow there.
Yeah. So I think what we could do is again, because if this was being lit for a film, they would use a bounce card in front of her to like throw extra light up on her face. And I think on this half of her face, we could bounce a little bit more up in there.
Okay.
And I think that would actually play better together.
I have a small bounce card in front of them, but it's a little further away for that shot.
Yeah.
I'll scoot it up, but.
Oh, and the other thing I saw was in the second shot, it could be a matte line. It could be like like right around the edge of her face. Yeah, it might just need to be edge.
I tried.
Or something.
Yeah. I have a little edge blur on there, but yeah, there's a 1 pixel wide thing all around them.
I hate the 1 pixel wide thing all around.
Yeah.
That drives me insane. And I think we can. I'm thinking about if we should brighten their teeth a little bit, just make them make those a little cleaner. It's interesting the color palette you chose, like for their shirts and their garments and stuff. I think.
Yeah, I my camera just went off. I fix that.
There we go. Oh, you're low battery.
I'll be okay. I found that texture for his shirt, and that just had to be it. I think that their basic materials were roughly those colors, so I just found something with a little bit more detail and threw it on. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts about that?
No. It was just because it's an interesting shot because it's creating an interesting color palette because it's a little bit monochromatic because they're all kind of not monochromatic, but it's like there's a similar chromatic element about all of the aspects of the shot, and so it's like really all about the subtlety of things. And I'm wondering if within that, because one of the things I was thinking, and I wasn't going to say this, but I'll just throw this out there. I was wondering if like maybe there was an opportunity to get some more, like especially with her lip color, it almost feels a little bit black. Like I wonder if we could pull some saturation out of her lips a little bit more.
Or just lighten it, or just saturation?
Lighten and saturation, just to get like a yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this one? On these three?
Mike, I just posted a thing. I think Kelvin might look at that thing.
Oh yeah, what's this?
I think he should introduce some light over there because it's getting merged at the time of the that time.
Yeah, that's a good call. Like let's maybe just put a little subtle rim light on.
Yeah,
here. That's a good call.
Yeah, it's getting merged with the background.
Yeah, because you can kind of
I was actually gonna say the same thing right before. It's like when we
Liar.
go to the shot.
Absolutely.
The brown. No, I really.
I just don't believe you.
I'm so tired of being the guy that comes in. I've not been doing anything, and I drop one note. But like, I literally was thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, the brown vest gets lost in the brown mount.
Yeah.
And there it is. I'll see you guys in a month.
All right, take care, Aaron. Never go. Aaron, fire out. Yeah, I think that's a good call. All right, cool. All right, good stuff, man.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. All right, Ruby. I think this looks great. Only thought when I just as I'm pulling it in now is maybe, and this wouldn't be something that like you would necessarily need to. This is what we would call a ship with the fix, but basically I think the yellows and that bird can come down just a little bit, just to kind of get it to settle into the spaces. Because it's like this is an interesting one because you've got so many different. There's a lot of different color coming into it, so like just balancing the saturation points and the brightness points. So it's really cohesive throughout. But I just thought that one point was kind of standing out. How are you feeling about it?
I like it. Well, I'll change that to make it better. But yeah, all the notes that you guys have given me, like they really, really improved the scene a lot. So yeah, it is a fun scene.
It's super. Yeah, it really is. And like you've gotten some really, like there's some really cool subtle things going on here. Like I'm noticing all of the bounce color coming up onto the white body of. I just want to call this guy Kirby, but that's not who he is. But I think that type of subtlety is nice. The cracks on the bedpost, just like this subtle pattern down here, just like these little elements really, really are helping out quite a bit. Yeah, that's all I got. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Mike, is there any problem with the frame? cat frame.
Oh, the cat frame. I was.
Yeah,
I was.
it's kind of itchy actually.
Yeah.
White line is there, and suddenly there is a break, and suddenly a little white line is there.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe rough up the specularity on the picture frame. That's true because that is a really tight specular highlight on there. I was also thinking about the saturation on that. I left it alone because I thought it's kind of like the funny part of the image. You know what I mean? So it's like it's fine that was kind of drawing us over there. But I agree. Yeah, that specular highlight's a little bit tight. Just add some.
And the duck near the under that bed, beside the bed, that is also kind of
This one.
very specularity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
As compared to this one,
Yeah.
more specularity is there,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, maybe try roughing up
Okay.
like what it was going
Yes,
on. There. Is there?
Yes, you can control it with the comp.
Yeah. 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 If you have it broken as a separate one, you can do that in the comp too. That's a good call. Yeah, those cracks look really good though.
Mike, I'm definitely going to do this one after the winter cabin.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's this one again. I think I know I've told this story before, but I just this was just me scrolling through LinkedIn and Barack had this posted, and I have no relationship with them, and this was just me reaching out and being like, hey man, I love this, I want it for my students, can I have it? And he was like you want to buy it? I was like, I do, kind of do. And so but it was just like, but it really was, I mean, one of the things about doing this for the last decade has been I've broken down my wall a little bit on reaching out to artists who I think do cool stuff, because I'm always just like, oh, they're never gonna respond, or they're not gonna, or I just like, they're not gonna want to talk to me feeling. And then you reach out to them and they're like super kind and super outgoing and are willing, are totally reasonable, and it's because some people are like, hey man, I want to have control over my work, and I don't want other people appropriating it for different means. And you're like, that's great, that's totally fine, and then you move on. But like most people are, and even when they say no, it's so respectful. And then, because how when you create stuff, if somebody reaches out, it just feels good. Like, it's just nice to be like, hey, I really like what you're doing. Can maybe tell me about how you did that, or would I be able to have access to this, or like people are pretty open to that stuff.
Yeah, that was my experience with asking animators to.
Totally great. That's a great example. Yeah. And also because especially if you're like trying to connect with somebody, it's great to have like a specific thing. So like I'll have people just reach out and be like, sometimes they'll just like send an image and say like, please, it'll just say like, please critique this. And I'm like, I don't, or just like, hey, can you help me with my work? And you're like, okay, but I was like, I'm really busy. I don't really have time to do other things. But if they're like, hey, I saw that you made this thing, it's kind of like what I'm trying to do. Could you help me out a little bit? Like, it becomes more specific then, and then it becomes, you're more willing to help them. You're more willing to help people out with that stuff. So it's a real silly one, but just one there. Okay. All right, Ruby, let's take a look. You had some reference up here too. Let me find that. All right, cool. So looking at the reference, one of the first things that I identify is how the saturation differences between what's in the foreground and what's in the background. Like her oranges, the reds of the flowers and the yellows of the yellow oranges over here, like all of that like jumps, right? Where all the background stuff is like a shade less saturation. It's like I'm guessing that was probably manipulated by the photographer in post, because I don't think that those two things would happen at the same time. But I think it's like, everything's brighter, more contrasty, more saturated in the foreground, and I think that's working, and that's really helping us draw our eye in. So I think for her, I almost wonder if we could do that in a tighter window where it's like this stuff is brighter, more saturated, more contrasty, and everything else kind of falls off to the side. The difficulty that you're going to have with this is it's just so visually complex, because there's so many little shapes going on that you're really going to have to use the light to almost like flatten out some areas and create shape, and then create shaping the other ones. Because like if you had the light coming down here, it would just be like tons of little shapes because of all the shaping coming across these plants here. So it's almost like by keeping them in the shadow, which also is going to be a little tricky, but I think that might be the only way to kind of do it. And I think the blue wall is a good idea. I think it's too saturated. I would pull that back in the saturation levels. How are you feeling about this? Because she's a little tricky out of the gate from one of my experiences of working with her.
Yeah, I saw the scene. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And at first, I wanted to like have the whole background with flowers, and then her in front. But then the render times were like a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So I had to take some of those out just for like critique. I might go back to it, but I'm not sure if it's gonna be too chaotic.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I really wanted to like so pretty, so I wanted to like really focus on her and the bright colors and stuff. So hopefully,
yeah.
Yeah.
So no, that's great. And then the other difficulty with this, or the other challenge of this shot, is getting the flowers to look right, because they almost have, because of the translucency of the petals, they almost have like a glowing quality when they're in the sun, which is, like all of these don't really like they don't really get super dark anywhere in there. Like even their shadowed points are still pretty saturated and pretty bright. But there's still shaping in there because of not only the light dark value of the light, but like the variation in the color as well. So that ends up being a tricky bit as well. But yeah, I think this is a good composition. I'm wondering if it's. I'm looking at the camera. I'm wondering if maybe like we move her a little bit more over this way in frame. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Because I like that she's not 100% centered, but...
Actually, I was thinking the opposite of you.
Oh, yeah?
Because I feel like, not exactly the opposite, but I feel like the let's call it a wall of flowers.
Yeah.
On the right
Yeah.
is very close to her, even if in theory it's far. I'm reading the images. It's far from camera, right?
Yeah.
And she's closer.
Yeah.
But I still feel like they're very, very close. So maybe if she gets moved on the right, also the wall of flowers.
So you're saying like
so that they don't get.
So you're saying take this
together.
and move that right?
Yeah, a little bit, so that there's still the blue frame around her from the background.
Yeah, that's a good. That might be a good call too.
Oh, and also about the wall of flowers, I feel like the purple ones on the left are very. I like them very much, while the ones on the right have a lot of black values. Like you were saying that. The flowers don't get the dark, so maybe I don't know, some transmission or something to pull that off, or less ambient occlusion.
Yeah. One of the things that what I've done in the past is it kind of breaks all natural laws. Is add a light that has like an ambient light, a light that doesn't really cast too many shadows. Keep the intensity very low. And then parent that, and then light link that light to just the petals of the flowers if they can be separated. Because what that does is then it just raises the dark point on just the flower petals.
Okay.
You
can give that a try too. Or you can do it in the
comments. I have a question about this asset actually.
Yeah.
So in my current job, we use a phrase a lot called we say like it feels mini, which at my job in stereoscopic 3D, it's the artist has misinterpreted how far something is away from another object, and the motion parallax makes the sizes maybe feel off, right? Yeah. With this asset, I had the same issues with it. Like no matter how I posed the camera, it was like and I'm looking here, and I'm wondering like we're looking down at the character. I found that like the only way I could get the character to quote not feel mini was like by like kind of doing like an up, like looking up or looking straight on, like kind of giving the character like more of a dominant like pose as far as like the framing. Is there anything that like lighting can do, or like is there something with maybe the scale of the models sometimes that would make them like feel smaller than like they're intended to feel? Is that a thing in?
Yeah. I mean, in the instance of her, I think it's the proportions of her head size to like her hand size makes it feel almost childlike, and that way, like if you took her hand that's holding this up and you put it on her face, it would be like this. It would be like this big on her face, right? It would like this is this is what you want, and it's not. That was like a conscious. You know, we were over exaggerating, and really we weren't saying like make her hand smaller than her face. We were saying let's make her facial features a little bigger. Let's make her eyes a little bigger. Let's make her, and what that ends up happening is it kind of throws off the scale a little bit. So yeah, and then your brain starts sending you cues like, wait, that's the proportions of a child, like a baby. Babies have those weird proportions sometimes, and so yeah, it does mess with it a little bit. That's a good point, and it's interesting because like she's sitting down, which would make you think that it wouldn't be uncommon for the camera to be above her eye line, but yeah, you kind of need to drop the camera might be a good move here too.
Okay, yeah, I mean it's not a knock or anything. I was just curious because I know like we have that issue.
No, it's definite. Yeah, it comes up all the time because like all this stuff is just fake. So getting that scale to feel right. Whether it's depth of field, whether it's the stereoscopic stuff, is all over the place. So, all right, cool. Well, that is all for today, everybody. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I will see you all back again on Monday. All right, be good, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.